core is a 4-letter word. Okay, let me tell you what that means. We're going to teach you how to launch a church, not plant a church. We're going to teach you how to launch large, the concept of saying, how do we launch larger than we ever thought we would? What does that look like? How does it happen? Because we say it's easier to turn a crowd into a church than a church into a crowd. So what would it look like if we launched large? What would that concept look like? And and I know you guys started that way, right? I mean, what was your? I mean, when
Launch
you started,
large?
Yeah. Well,
No.
not 12, but that. Talk to me about that whole concept in your training and what you guys.
Yeah, we honestly didn't get a lot of training. So I'll speak to the other side of this, because what Ron is saying is absolutely true. Our story is we were a part of a fellowship of churches, and they kind of had the y'all go ahead thing going on. We're like, man, we feel called to plant a church. And they called us in and they said, great, we need your computer, we need your keys, we need your things. You're no longer of use to us, y'all go ahead, and gave us the left foot of fellowship. You know what I'm talking about? The Bible talks about Paul extended the right hand of fellowship. We got the left foot of fellowship. So my wife and I moved to Fort Myers, and it was just the two of us, and we had 2 college guys, one guy who had interned with me for a couple summers in a leadership deal, and then another guy who had a call on his life for ministry and to pastor people, but had kind of been pigeonholed in our previous reality. And so those 2 guys moved down with us, and that duffer, he was 21, and he smoked, and that was our launch team. So honestly, we didn't have a lot of training. And so just what Ron is saying, I mean, the fact that you're here, you're going to get more training in the next 2 days than, it took Sarah and I, 2 or 3 years to learn so many of these concepts that Ron's talking about. So this idea of launching with a launch team, launching large, building that launch team is so absolutely huge, because that's what we had to do. Where we came from was like, you go preach up a church, brother. Go preach it up. Preach it up with the anointing. And there's all of that, but it takes a lot more than just preaching it up. So I'm kind of the antithesis of all of that, because we kind of had to, crawl into ours. Yeah. But Ron is talking about is you can plant a church the hard way, or you can plant a church like Ron and these guys on this stage this week are going to be talking about. Yeah. So I highly recommend this. This is good stuff. I'm taking notes, man.
Okay, take them. The whole launch, I tell the story of my aunt and uncle lived over at the Cape, and they watched all the Apollo rockets go up. My uncle worked there, and I remember going to visit them during that day, and there was my aunt, when I walked into her house, she was taking all the pictures off the wall and putting them in boxes. And I said, Aunt Miriam, what are you doing? Are you moving? And she said, no, there's a launch today, and we take everything off the walls when the launch goes up, because it shakes every house in the community. And that is exactly what a launch does. When you launch a church, it captures the attention of the entire community. As opposed to planting a church, when you plant a church, not a lot of people show up for a planting, do they? Farmers put seeds in the ground, not a whole lot of people show up. Not a big event, nobody even knows what's going on. So we want to give you some tools. We're going to walk through that. But
that's phenomenal.
Let me give you 2 books too. Never Eat Alone. Keith Ferrazzi, I think is how you pronounce his name, but great book on connecting if you're building a team, how to do that. Another book that I just recently read that I really love is called The Little Black Book of Connections. If you're like me, I am an introvert. So connecting and networking is a new world for me, and something I have to really think about. But the Never Eat Alone talks about the whole concept of you network for generosity, you network for other people, and is a great read. He said, so catch those 2, especially if you're an introvert. You're gonna build a launch team. Number 6 there, Matt, you want to take it?
Number 6, the right location. The right location. What tools do you need to assemble this gas grill that you just brought home, from the hardware store? What tools do you need? You need the right location. And this statement is a great statement. Start in a place where you fit the culture. Start in a place where you fit the culture because you will reach who you are. You will not necessarily reach who you want. You will reach who you are. You will not necessarily reach who you want. As I mentioned, my wife and I, we pastor Next Level Church in Fort Myers, Florida. We're on the southwest coast, about 2 hours south of Tampa Bay. And Fort Myers is not a huge city. There's about 500,000 people in Lee County, and there's about 1.1 million people in what we would consider to be a 5-county radius of southwest Florida. But by and large, Fort Myers is not a gigantic city. And honestly, as we were seeking the Lord and praying and saying, God, where do you want us to go to start our church a decade ago? Fort Myers is one of those places which, of course, we didn't really fully understand this until we got there and really started to, live among the people. But Fort Myers fits us. I'm a Midwest boy. I mean, if we'd have went to South Beach in Miami, I would not have fit there. My jeans are not skinny enough. Like, it is not, I'm just not going to wear the tongue of my shoes out. I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't fit in Miami. That would not be who I was. And it's been crazy as God has opened doors, and we travel across the country now to so many cities and work with pastors and church planners and coaching across the country. And through other networks, every time we fly into a city, there's that feeling of, man, I love where we are. I love Fort Myers. I love our city because it fits us. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people from Minnesota. There's a lot of people from the Midwest in Fort Myers who migrate down and live in Fort Myers in Lee County where we are. Our city fits us. And I'm telling you, one of the surefire ways to misfire in your church plant will be to go to the wrong city. And even the city within the city, man, you got to know where that's at. Take some time, look at the demographic studies, realize where it is. Because just because all of the happening hot growth is happening in one little suburb doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best place, that that's the best fit for you. And so some of this is about being honest about who we are, how God has. Be careful, there's a stool there, and it'll jump right out at you. We have to be careful to really do that work of introspection in prayer and say, God, how have you uniquely wired and gifted me? Because how he has uniquely wired and gifted you is perfect for the exact place that God has for you. And
I believe God calls you to a place because God prepares a place for you and you for a place.
Yes.
For Teddy and I, we were called to start the Springs. Honestly, I thought I was leaving Ocala because I was in Ocala, and part of me said, well, I like big cities. I grew up in New York. I grew up in Orlando. I thought, man, this is my ticket out. I mean, God's calling us to another city, and we'd been here for, 4.5 years as a youth pastor, and so we were wrestling, okay, we're just nailing down a location. God, where's it going to be? And I'm thinking it's Birmingham, Atlanta, going back home to Orlando, a lot of connections there. God, where's it going to be? And one day I was having my quiet time on the back porch, and just Psalm 37 is my chapter, and it's the calling of the Springs. And God said very clearly to us, I want you to dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. I want to give you the desires of your heart. And you know how the Holy Spirit just speaks to you in a verse and I just looked at dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. God said, you're going to stay right here in Ocala and start this church.
Wow.
And my first reaction was, no. I mean, I don't want to stay here because, it's not going to look good because I'm a youth pastor in a town and I'm going to start a church. It doesn't look good, God. Not a real good plan, but no. And, well, I walked off the back porch after having my quiet time, and Teddy looked at me and she said, how's your quiet time? I said, well, baby, he's going to make us stay in Ocala. And Teddy, being the supportive, encouraging wife she's always been, looked at me and said, no, he's not. Go back out and ask again. And
that's awesome.
And I did, and I said, that woman that you gave me, we both knew in our hearts, God, this isn't the plan that we had in mind. But what we realized is that as Matt was talking about Fort Myers, it's that we had become Ocalans.
Yeah.
And if you want to know who you're going to reach, You know, a lot of church planners say, well, I want to reach, you know, six-figure, you know, business executives, and I always say, oh, are you one of them?
Right.
Well, no, but I want to reach them. You won't.
Yep.
If you want to know who you're going to reach, who are your friends? That's the low-hanging fruit. You're going to reach, initially, you're going to reach who you are as you start. And, you know, and you find out who your friends are, and you say, okay, those are the kind of people that we're going to reach initially.